Hey guys, welcome to Marvel Madness, and we're finally at the end of Phase 1, which is the Avengers. This sort of like the,
What
I
the
guess,
fuck is the Avengers?
I don't know.
Never heard of this before. It's
But yeah,
funny that we say that because a lot of people probably had never heard of the Avengers before this movie came
I
out.
know, right?
Because
Like, they,
the Avengers doesn't have the same household recognition as the Justice League
I
or something
know,
like
I was gonna say, like, everybody knows the Justice League because, it's Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman. But this is like Iron Man, Captain America, the Hulk, Thor. Thor especially, it's like, what?
that. Right.
For
Because, I mean,
the,
Thor, like, back in the old comic books was a really, like, dorky, spoken, like, broken Shakespearean-esque English
yeah.
kind of character with, like, little feathers coming out of it, wings coming out of his, like, cap and shit. So he's a weird dude. Um,
Yeah, so like the Marvel movies up to this point have been doing well. They've been doing well in the box office, but not quite as well as this. Like this broke records, and it's still in the top 10 of the highest-grossing movies of all time.
yeah.
So
And it's like something had never been done before. I don't think there was really not a superhero movie, and even maybe like a movie in general that was done on this kind of scale.
right,
It's like ridiculous. And you watch it now, and it's still pretty ridiculous. Like everything that had to come together to make this movie work.
yeah,
So, I mean, I guess we can just start with like I know a lot of people think this movie's overrated. Like
yeah,
there's a lot of people love it. There's a huge fandom around it. You know, like it brought superheroes to like this is when they became like super mainstream. If you
yeah.
ask me.
Like this is when like people will flock to any Marvel movie that
Yeah,
comes out.
between this and The Dark Knight, those are the two like huge things that like bridged that gap finally and made these movies like super mainstream. Like
Yeah,
everybody would go and
yeah.
see.
Spider-Man was close, but not quite
Spider-Man
as.
was close, but I
Yeah,
think it was like still a little too early. You
yeah,
know, and then Spider-Man 3 kind of ruined all that momentum that that franchise
yeah.
was building up.
But then Iron Man came out.
When Iron Man kind of
Yeah,
saved it. Avengers was like the final linchpin, though. That's if it wasn't for Avengers being as big as it was, no one would have seen Guardians. You know,
right.
like I don't think Guardians would have had the same track. Like a lot of people went to it and had faith in it because it was a Marvel movie.
Yeah,
I think if it was like an original IP, no one would have paid it nearly as much attention.
right.
So like this is the film that like made Marvel a household name and really made the landscape what it is
Yeah, a
now.
household name for, movies because they're already a household name
Right,
for
like people know
comics.
who they are for
Yeah,
comics, but
yeah,
like in terms of like, yeah, I will go see a Marvel movie because it's a Marvel movie,
yeah,
you know, which is like really kind of crazy because even like a few years ago, before the movie came out, you would never think
yeah,
that, you know, and
yeah.
I
And
don't know,
so many people thought that this movie was going to fail. It was just going to
it was
fall.
very
Yeah,
ambitious, you
yeah,
know, and I think the reason why it didn't fail is why a lot of people think it's overrated, because so many people that I've talked to at least that say that the film's overrated say it's overrated because it's like all flash, no substance. There's
yeah.
no plot or anything to it. It's just like smashing things, and like they don't develop the characters at all or anything like that. And I get that, but you can't watch Avengers even though a bunch of people clearly did because the way
Yeah,
it shattered box office. You can't the Avengers movie cannot be considered a standalone kind of
right,
thing. It's it is the third act to all the
right.
films that preceded it, and when you consider it as a third act, it's like a third act done to the upteenth degree. You
Yeah,
know, like dialed up to 11. The reason there's no character development for these characters in this movie has all been done in the movies leading
right.
up to it. That's why those all those films were made, so they didn't have to squeeze all of that development and all that introduction into Avengers.
I
So
know a
it
lot of
could just
people.
be
I know a lot of people who actually when they heard about the Avengers coming out, was like they're making an Avengers movie, and then they hadn't really seen the first phase films, and then well, I'll watch the first phase films if they're making this, so people would like marathon through the
right.
the first five movies like I just did this week before watching the Avengers for this whole recap thing, and a lot of people like started to get invested in the characters after they rent the movie or watch it online or something, and then when they get invested in the characters through the previous movies, they're really invested in the Avengers.
Hmm.
So it's just seeing them all together.
Exactly. So I think when people levy that complaint against the film, I don't really think it's fair. Because
Right.
I think The Avengers was made under the impression that you'd already seen the other ones. You
Right.
know? Because when you watch it by itself, it's like a solid enough like popcorn flick, but you don't understand the depth of like the character like conflicts that are going on. Excuse me,
Right.
because you don't understand. You, obviously, it relies heavily on context within the
Yeah.
previous films. So, and that's again that I think leads into why a lot of people are kind of worried that, especially seeing all these movies coming from Marvel in the future, it's just like, are we going to get to that point where like this like Marvel Cinematic Universe becomes so dense that you need to see all of these films,
Yeah.
or it's just going to come into like a clusterfuck? Like if you're just some random dude, or even if you're just like a kid who's just like 13 or whatever, 12 or 13, doesn't have, you know, was like a fetus back when Iron Man came out or whatever, you
Yeah.
know, like 5 years in the future, 10 years in the future, and just like has to like watch all of these old films by their degree, like their perception, just to understand Avengers 4 or whatever.
Yeah, though that's how I feel when like going into the comics, because I was like looking up some stuff last night of like
Right.
what I can
That's the
read,
whole thing.
and it's just I just can't, I don't know where to start with anything.
And that's the
So
thing, because with Avengers and with like their whole cinematic universe that was leading up to this movie, they're trying to do for films the exact same thing they have going on with the comics, and that
Yeah.
all their characters exist in the same like continuing universe. So the strengths of that is that you can have a film like Avengers where all of your characters come together,
Yeah.
but the weakness is that it's the same thing that's plaguing their comics. Like it's so convoluted.
yeah,
So they're gonna have to try and like keep a lid on that going forward and making sure that it doesn't get too like self-involved, I guess.
yeah. Another complaint I hear about the Avengers is that that it's a slow start, but after rewatching, because I watched it 2 times in theaters, and then like a couple of times after, and I hadn't watched it in about a year or so, and I don't really think it's a slow start. I mean, the first thing that happens is Shield's headquarters blows up.
Right. That's like what I was
So
about to say. The first thing that happens
yeah,
is like the Tesseract gets stolen and like the entire base sinks into the earth and stuff.
yeah,
And it's like, what are you expecting? That's a slow start. It
yeah.
starts with like whatever.
I
I
mean,
don't know.
I
I
guess
mean,
it's a slow start in terms of the team coming together.
right. But I think
Yeah.
there.
But they do have
it's-
to introduce every character in at least for this movie. I'm not sure about Age of Ultron how they're going to do that if they're just going to be all like Avengers Assemble.
Right.
So
I mean, they probably will because the whole thing with this movie is that like it's not the team hadn't really been formed. It was this movie was about a situation that
yeah,
brought them all together to make this kind of ragtag team of superheroes, and you can't have them be together from the beginning. You have to build up to that, and I think the narrative element that is there in this movie with Coulson dying and bringing everybody together and all that stuff
yeah.
was what made it work.
Spoilers,
That's
by
what
the way.
made
Though if you're watching Agents of Shield, she's still alive. So
again, more things that they're doing in the comics that they've brought to the cinematic universe. This character's
bringing
never really
characters
died.
to life. Yeah.
So, but again, I think it was really successful. It was really ambitious. The action scenes were great.
Yeah, like
Like
the last 40 minutes is like nonstop.
it's just like fisticuffs.
Yeah.
And as a comic book nerd, I was all fucking over that
Yeah.
shit. I was like, yes, please. And the whole time you're just like, when's Hulk gonna show up? When's Hulk gonna show up?
Yeah. And then he like Bruce
It's my
Banner comes
secret.
on the scooter.
It's my
Like-
secret. I'm always angry. And just like instantly, he's got his fucking shit down now and just like punches that big motherfucker and just drops it. And you're just like, oh, fuck. Yeah. So
Yeah,
like,
that's
I mean,
that's like the money shot of the film.
I was
so.
I was in fanboy mode that entire time because, like I said earlier, like Hulk's one of my favorite superheroes just from like being a little kid. I'm just like, yeah, smash that shit, and like that was the best. Like when Captain America's like, all right, this is what we're gonna do. You're gonna do this. You're gonna do this. You're gonna do this. Hulk, smash, and
Yeah.
then he just does it. You're just like, yes, they said it. They said the thing. Yeah, it was a fanboy's wet dream, and
Yeah.
I speak from personal experience. I mean, what?
Yeah, but like the whole and the whole New York thing where they're about to like, I guess we'll touch on that in Iron Man 3, but because where Tony goes up into the wormhole and then comes back out. So, but yeah, the Avengers, it's a really really fun movie. I think that's probably why people like it so much, and why so many people went to go see it, because it's just really fun.
It's the epitome of like a summer blockbuster film. It hits all the notes that you want to go see in a movie like that. You know, it's very easy to digest entertainment done on a technical level that few other films have managed to reach, and just the raw ambition of bringing all these franchises into one cohesive thing. And then for people who've been following the series, having all of the little questions that have been building up in the overarching story kind of answered this big thing. I mean, because Marvel clearly has a lot of experience doing this, because they do this every summer with their comic books too. They have a bunch of intertwining stories come to a head in their big summer events. So they basically, again, what worked in comics we'll just do with a bigger budget here. And it's been working for them for the past X amount of years in the comic book form. So like, let's just throw more money at it and make it even bigger of a spectacle.
Yeah,
so,
and this is like every, what, 3 years?
Yeah, I mean, the concept clearly works. And I'll go see it. I'm clearly gonna go see the next one. So
yeah. Jackson already saw it.
Piece of shit.
Because the military base near where he lives is playing it.
God,
he got to see it for free.
No comment.
Anyway, yeah. So those are, I guess, our ramblings on the Avengers. If you haven't seen it, how?
Yeah, like how have you missed it? Like,
Yeah, like how have you missed the Avengers? Like one of the biggest movies in the past few years. So anyway,
you owe it to yourself to check it out. Even if you're not a huge superhero fan, this can very much turn you into a superhero fan.
Yeah.
Because clearly it did for a lot of people.
Yeah. All right. So next time we'll go into Phase 2, starting with Iron Man 3. So see you next time. Bye.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Well, by now we're getting a bit used to winter. We're like soldiers in the middle of a campaign, growing hardened to discomfort and better able to save.